While you're watching News 9, welcome. The International Committee of the Red Cross says about 24,000 persons, mostly children, were reported missing here in Nigeria as of June this year. But that figure could be higher, as only a fraction of missing persons or cases are reported. At an event to mark the International Day of the Disappeared, ICRC said over 71,000 people across Africa are registered as missing. That's a 75% rise from the number recorded in 2019. Africa is the continent with the highest missing persons caseload. At the event, families and friends of the disappeared appealed to the Nigerian government to make policies that will help to find their missing relatives.
My mother died. I could not see her. I could not pay her the last respect. We could not do anything about her. My father had to send somebody to use the neighboring Cameroon network to call us that your mother is dead. None of you should come home. Don't attempt any movement. We don't know if we will bury her. Now, I was busy counting. We were busy counting our loss. Now is my mother. And in my mother, I was just imagining, will she be buried or will she be left for the dogs and pigs? Because that was exactly what was going on.
When they gathered that they separate men and women, both sides. They set the village on fire, they set it ablaze. Around 5 o'clock p.m. Up to 9 o'clock in the night, they asked us, everybody should go. We was running blindly, thinking that my children will follow me. We left, we have been running in the night till the following day. I realized that I missed all my children. I saw only one child that I was holding. Since when I miss my children, I'm feeling lonely. I have nobody, nothing. I have nobody. So since when they got missing.
Well, let's bring in Serhat Ozturk, who is the Delegate of Protection of Family Links of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess not many people know, who are aware that there's such a day as a day set aside to remember the disappeared, forcefully disappeared. But let's talk about what factors really are contributing to this phenomenon. And the role that the state plays.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me on this important day. Well, the 30th of August, the International Day of the Disappeared, is a day to commemorate people that go missing across the world, but also in Nigeria due to many reasons. We, in the International Committee of the Red Cross, observe that most of our caseload of missing persons are related to the conflict in the Northeast. But that doesn't mean that there are not other reasons people go missing. There could be criminal activities, there could be natural disasters, there could even be climate-related migration effects that lead to people going missing across the world. So today is an important day to show our solidarity with the families who are still searching for answers.
Now let's talk about statistics, because looking at the number, it will seem as some kind of bogus figure or something that isn't real. But how real is this number?
Well, the number is first very real in the sense that when we talk about 24,000 cases registered by the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Nigerian Red Cross Society, it means that every time a family, a relative of a missing person comes to us and confides their personal story to us. But at the same time, it's not necessarily real, because we know that there are many more people who are not in our reach. There are many more people who are maybe not ready to step forward and say that they are missing someone in their families.
So that's to say that the numbers, this number we're getting, 20-something thousand, it could be just a conservative figure. But let's talk about the significance of this year's theme, We That Are Left Behind Remember. And beyond remembering, what actions really should be taken both on the part of the individual, the communities, and of course the state?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for this question. Well, I think whichever effort that needs to take place, most importantly, it needs to put into the center the voice and the expressed needs of families of missing persons. I remember once we were told that having someone missing in your family is like almost missing a limb. The pain is the same. The difference is that nobody sees your pain. So what needs to be done is to actively listen to the families of missing persons. Then they will tell us that they are suffering through immense mental and psychosocial pain and troubles. They are facing, of course, economic problems which were already worsened by the disappearance of someone in the family. They talk about the sacrifices they've been making. So the response is maybe a part of it is strengthening the legal framework to recognize the status and also the rights of families of missing persons, as well as those of missing persons, but also to develop programs that address these needs by putting the families in the center and acknowledging them.
And the ICC has already looked at this, where it says critically that that's a widespread systematic attack targeted sometimes at a group to the extent that some of these groups, citizens or people around those groups disappeared. In Nigeria, is there a systematic attack targeting a group or group of persons, as has observed in places like Mexico, where over 100,000 have just disappeared as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, according to our observation, of course, when we talk about an armed conflict situation in the Northeast, as you know, it's very complex. There are direct effects of this, such as there are many families who are directly fleeing an attack to their communities. But there are also indirect effects, such as losing each other on a route to fleeing, or having your network collapsing. And even though you have your contact information, you're not able to contact each other. So it's not only the attack itself, but it's all the adverse effects that the conflict brings into.
So if I get you correctly, in cases of conflict, some of them don't find themselves in displaced persons' homes or refugee camps. They're just there wandering, not being able to reach out to their family members.
Exactly. Sometimes, very unfortunately, the moment to flee only allows some families, some members of the family, especially children, to be prioritized, and then some part of the family remains behind, and the search continues for weeks, months, and unfortunately maybe for years.
In your findings so far, especially in the case of Nigeria, you have over 20,000 forcefully disappeared. To what extent are you able to say, look, on the part of government is responsible for this number of missing persons, and then other factors that you reeled out earlier? Because I asked you, what is the role of the state? Mm-hmm. Because we do understand that the state too, mm-hmm. Plays a huge role in, forceful disappearance of people.
Yes, of course. So the international humanitarian law and international human rights law that are also applicable in Nigeria require put the primary responsibility, of course, on Nigeria to do their utmost best to provide answers to the families of missing persons. And the International Committee of the Red Cross works very closely with various governmental authorities, federal and state-wise, who have shown great interest, motivation, and of course, personal dedication to provide answers. Unfortunately, the issue is complex and it requires maybe more time, more determination, and more investment until the results come true.
Okay, well, my point, actually, maybe you didn't understand my question. My point is there are situations where government itself is responsible for missing persons. Mm-hmm. Is that something you're finding out, whether in Nigeria or in other parts of Africa?
Well, it is. Is
it something you're even addressing?
It is a phenomenon for us. The families of when we talk about the families of the missing as the core of our program, right. The suffering is what unites them in together. So all the efforts that we are addressing to improve their situation does not differentiate between the causes. So all causes for families of the
Okay.
missing persons are included for
Right.
our
Okay.
support.
Okay, as you work towards awareness and also kind of support for the families, help us make sense of the kind of support you bring to such families of that have experienced disappearance of some of their loved ones.
Thank you for that. Well, maybe the main part of our work that's very well known by many is the search activities we conduct together with the Nigerian Red Cross Society to bring about answers to these families. But we also recognize that every day that passes without answers, it also sustains the suffering of the families. So to address that in a multidisciplinary way, we have been implementing some programs in Adamawa and Borno states, now reaching more than 500 families. To together discover in family groups, also led by communities themselves, to cope with the mental suffering, also address issues together, and create a sustainable support group among the families themselves. So when international organizations such as the International Committee of the Red Cross is not needed, they can still sustain and support each other.
Are there any success stories? I mean, situations where these disappeared persons actually come home? What kind of preparation really should the families, the communities, make for such people? Yeah.
Well, I think the hope never fades, and I would say there is a good reason for that, because we have been witnessing so many positive stories in addition to the suffering that still continues for some families. So when we work with groups of families, it happens that throughout the year, while we are implementing our program together with them, some of those families receive good news, because now there is a news that comes from an area that they had no contact with. Someone coming from a distant land brings news that they have seen that beloved person, and that hint allows them to continue, and also us to pursue the hint and bring about answers.
Before you came on, we had this conversation around the number of kidnappings in Nigeria, over 7,000. This number that you've put together, over 20,000, does it include these kidnapped persons? I mean, are they part of the disappeared, or is it totally different, ball game entirely?
Well, since the mandate of the International Committee of the Red Cross relates particularly in Nigeria to armed conflict situations, I would say our numbers primarily reflect the direct consequences of the armed conflict without directly relating to the issue mentioned before.
Okay, that's interesting to note. We have to say thank you very much for joining us. Serhat Ozturk is the Protection of Family Links ICRC. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me.